I got a request for an updated heavyweight rankings video on Twitter. Follow me on Twitter at Boxing Gossip if you're interested. But I got a request for an updated top 20 list following on from Wilder Stiverne. So I've been having a bit of a think, writing down a few notes, working out what order I put the guys. Few things to say. I'll be brief. I'll try and make this is the kind of video I could talk for an hour for, so I'll try and rattle through at least the first 5 or 6 quite quickly. Mean that we're not here for too long. Few things to say. First, I haven't included 2 guys who I think ability-wise would certainly make the top 20. That's Cuban Luis Ortiz as well as David Haye. David Haye's been so inactive, I'm not sure we can consider him a boxer these days, more of a celebrity perhaps, but I'm excluding him for activity reasons. Luis Ortiz, currently suspended for performance-enhancing drug use. I want to see how that works out and see whether he's still an active fighter in the division after his suspension before including him in the list. People may be perhaps surprised I haven't included either Joseph Parker or Anthony Joshua. I'd probably consider both of them between number 20, between number 30. They just haven't beaten the level of opposition. I think there's 20 guys out there who've beaten a better calibre of opposition than them. It's not just about calibre of opposition, it's about how you take care of business. But I think unless you've beaten someone I consider top 50, and I'm not sure either of those names have, they haven't been included. For similar reasons, I haven't included David Price. For similar reasons, I haven't included Christian Hammer. For me to be a top 20 fighter, you've got to start taking on top 40, top 50 names, and a few guys have missed out on that basis. Now, cracking on with the 20 list. As I say, what I'll try and do initially is take it fairly quick through the first bit. But at number 20, I've got Lucas Brown. He's a guy, again, I was considering excluding him due to calibre of opposition, but he's fought a few slightly higher level guys, I think. Andre Rudenko, albeit in a very close fight. James Toney. I noticed he knocked out Jason Gaverne quicker than Deontay Wilder. There's bits and pieces of form which mean that Lucas Brown is, just about a top 20 heavyweight. He's an older guy. He really needs to step up the level of opposition if he's going to get anywhere. Because the rate he's going at, he's going to be 38, 39 before he gets a title shot. So I'd like to see him in bigger fights, maybe against UK heavyweights, David Price, Derek Chisora, etc. And number 19, a guy who I think's underrated, Mariusz Wach. BoxRec have him in the 40s. But I don't understand, the guy went the distance with Klitschko. He knocked out Christian Hammer. Why is Christian Hammer ranked near the top 10 by BoxRec? And this guy, Mariusz Wach, outside the top 40? I understand he has problems outside the ring. I understand there's questions about performance-enhancing drugs. There's questions about some sort of criminality in his lifestyle, so we say. But he's come back recently, 2 fights in late 2014, both wins by knockout. This is a guy who, in my opinion, is a bit more of a proven operator at heavyweight, and I think is a highly regarded guy. It wouldn't take a lot for me to consider Mariusz Wach slightly higher than number 19, if he can keep the activity and keep the knockouts flowing. Number 18, Odlanier Solis. Perhaps the most frustrating character in boxing. Very talented, but equally overweight, equally lazy. Not the hardest trainer. Questions about his attitude. He recently dropped a decision to Tony Thompson that he really should have won. There's bits and pieces of form in his record that make you think he's a credible fighter. He beat, I think it was Ray Austin. He beat Leif Larson, who was undefeated at the time. He's sort of had wins over fringe contenders at best. Odlanier Solis, in terms of talent, I'm sure has the capability to be a top 10 fighter, but I exclude him to number 18 based on the opposition. Number 17, Antonio Tarver. For me, I won't speak too much about this. I think BoxRec have dramatically overrated his win over Jonathan Banks by putting him in the top 10. I think Banks is a credible top 40 guy. Tarver did well against him. I was impressed by the performance. Clearly, this guy now in his mid to late 40s. He's going to need to keep very, very busy. Number 16. Might be a surprise to some people, but I've got Ksar Glazkov at number 16. Glazkov is not a guy I'm overly keen on. I think he's very, very overrated in the boxing community. You know, he beat Adamek, yes, but I wonder how much the sort of, let's be honest, slightly faded Adamek, how big a challenge that represents. I don't put the strongest form behind that Adamek fight. If we look at other performances, he drew with Malik Scott, but it was clear to me Malik Scott was getting the better of him in that fight. Malik Scott's a good fighter. I think he's underrated. But let's be honest, if you're drawing with Malik Scott, you don't deserve to be a top 5 heavyweight. I also thought he got beaten by Derek Rossi, who's a sort of top 50 operator at best. So Glazkov, he's got attributes. He's got a jab, he's got the amateur pedigree, but I think he's small. I think he can be outboxed, and the performances he's put in against Scott, the performances he's put in against Derek Rossi makes me think that he'll get exposed very soon. Funnily enough, he's scheduled to fight Steve Cunningham very, very soon, and I think that might be the time where he loses his winning record. I think Cunningham will be too skilled for him. Number 15, Malik Scott. I know Malik Scott is a figure of fun and quite unpopular against a lot of members of the community. People say he took a dive against Wilder, people say he took a dive against Chisora. What I can say is we've got a guy who, to my eye, was outboxing Derek Chisora until questionable stoppage. We've got a guy who, in my eyes, clearly outboxed Glazkov, who's rated very, very highly. We've got a guy who just absolutely hammered Alex Leapai over a distance. This guy, he's not a big puncher, but he's a slick operator, and I think he'd be a challenge for anyone out there on his day. Clearly, the biggest punchers in the sport, the Wilders, the Hayes of this world, may be able to catch him and end the game if he's got a questionable chin or a questionable heart, so we say. But this is a guy, his wins over Leapai, his win in my book over Glazkov, means he shouldn't be ignored from the division. So I've got Malik Scott at number 15. Number 14, Artur Spilka, a guy who again I feel is slightly overrated by the boxing community. Bryant Jennings, we're yet to see what he's really made of in my eyes, but he beat Spilka fair and square. I know Spilka came back and again had a win over faded Adamek. He's got one or two other bits and pieces of form, but the level of opposition other than Adamek has been questionable. I rate him at 14. I rate him slightly higher than Glazkov. He, for me, hasn't been as easy to outbox as Glazkov has at times, but I think they're a similar level of fighter, and I think that Glazkov Spilka fight, I believe both Polish guys, I think that's the fight that a lot of people would like to see, and it's, I slightly lean towards Spilka. I think he carries a bit more power, I think he's a bit bigger, but they're a similar level, I'd admit. Number 13, Ruslan Chagayev, a guy who's often forgotten, who nobody would really consider him a world champion, except himself perhaps, but he's got bits and pieces of form. He beat Nikolai Valuev, went the distance with Povetkin, recently beat Freza Quendo, who's probably top 50-ish. The guy is past his best. In my opinion, he isn't a big puncher. In my opinion, he's waiting to get exposed by a young lion. But he's solid enough, he's durable enough. On his day, I think he deserves to be a top 15 fighter. So I've got Chagayev at 13. Derek Chisora at number 12. Derek Chisora is the kind of guy I don't think deserves to be in the top 10. Put frankly, whenever he steps up, he loses. Fury, Hay, Klitschko, the debatable loss to Hellenius. This is a guy who's European level, in my opinion, not much beyond it. He deserves to be rated in the top 15 because he's got wins over the likes of Kevin Johnson, over Malik Scott, over Edmund Gerber. He's got wins over a reasonable level of opposition, and he's consistently performed that way. So I think Derek Chisora does deserve to be number 12 in my ratings. I just don't think realistically he's ever going to be higher than that. Number 11, Steve Cunningham, a guy I really rate. In my opinion, beat Adamek. in my opinion, gave Tyson Fury his toughest night. In my opinion, will probably go on to beat Glazkov when they fight. Recently, he beat Amir Mansour in a fight of the year. He destroyed, outboxed, stopped Natu Visinia, an unbeaten 10-0 £300 prospect. Big puncher. Steve Cunningham, good athlete, good mover, good jabber, good technician. A real player in the heavyweight division as I see it. Maybe he's found his limit at number 11. Maybe he could go one or two places higher. But clearly he's very small for the division. He doesn't hit as hard as some of the bigger guys out there. So I think